The courtroom stood as a solemn place, echoing with the whispers of justice and the weight of decisions that could change lives. High ceilings towered above, adorned with heavy wooden beams and dark paneling that spoke of authority and tradition. Rows of benches filled with serious adults sat silently, their expressions a mix of concern and attentiveness. And no one could deny that this was a space where important matters were discussed, matters that could feel overwhelming to anyone, especially a child. In this particular courtroom, the air hung thick with anticipation. The judge, a stern figure in his black robe, commanded respect from all who entered. His gavel rested on the desk before him, ready to bring order or emphasize a point with just one tap. The polished surface of the bench reflected not just the harsh overhead lights but also the tension in the room. It was easy to see how a young heart might race in such an environment, where every spoken word carried weight and every glance felt scrutinizing. For many people entering the courtroom, it was a place filled with worry or hope. Adults navigated these chambers equipped with years of experience. They wore their anxiety like armor. But for children, especially those facing difficult situations, like witnessing a family member in trouble or dealing with their own fears, the atmosphere could feel frighteningly oppressive. The solemnity, the visible tension between lawyers and judges, made one feel small and insignificant. Childhood innocence seemed distant in this realm of grown-up issues. The little girl who would soon step forward was just 7 years old, scared but brave enough to share her truth. Her pigtails bounced slightly as she walked in, clutching her mother's hand tightly. The bright colors of her dress stood out against the dark wood of the benches and the muted tones of adult attire. She peered around wide-eyed at the surroundings, the towering bookshelves brimming with law books and the imposing presence of security officers stationed near exits added to her sense of unease. She took her seat at the front alongside her mother. Her little legs dangled above the ground. Swinging nervously, she looked up at the judge, a figure she had only seen before in movies or on television, and felt both fascinated and frightened by his seriousness. It was hard for her to understand how being in this place could hold such power over people's lives. The air filled with murmurs faded into nothing. As she took a deep breath, she wanted to be brave despite everything swirling around her. Perhaps it was the sound of the gavel striking wood, or perhaps it was simply nerves that jolted her heart further into her throat. When it was time for her to speak, she felt all eyes upon her like giant searchlights, catching every flicker of fear across her face. Instinctively, she put on a brave smile as best as she could muster. Yet inside, doubt crept through every nerve. In moments like this, it becomes clear how children perceive authority figures differently than adults do. To them, judges are not merely professionals behind desks deciding cases. They are iconic figures standing tall against injustice. Yet there they were, this vibrant child against the backdrop of sternness, and it was overwhelming. When it became her turn to express herself about an event that weighed heavily on her young shoulders, all those feelings converged into one moment. The fear culminated into tears that began streaming down her cheeks unbidden. And in that instant when vulnerability slipped through, all seriousness turned toward her in shock, as if they forgot how humans are meant to feel pain. Yet here was where everything began to change. Even in such a tense environment filled with gravity, there remained an undeniable thread of compassion among some present, for amidst all seriousness bloomed unexpected empathy that stemmed from recognizing childhood's fragility. This little girl's tears did not define weakness nor shame. They were simply reflective of feelings too big for one small heart to carry alone within cold walls lined with formality. Her quiet sobs echoed lightly yet reverberated throughout the room, bringing forth thoughts buried beneath layers accumulated through years spent navigating adult complexities. It reminded everyone present of forgotten innocence. It opened doors once locked away by time-long practices and rules steeped within rigid traditions surrounding courts. Recognizing this tension built up due to adult perception versus youthful honesty sparked discussions amongst witnesses lingering faintly after viewing such raw emotion juxtaposed against stoicism usually expected within judicial realms, a struggle many could relate to when placed under scrutiny. Though serious matters were at hand, the reminder that even children need understanding brought forth warmth beneath stony surfaces, yielding glimpses into what humanity truly looks like beyond expectations, anew made visible through cracks softly emerging like sunlight breaking through storm clouds hung low overhead, ready to transform shadows into light, once again directing conversations around topics seldom brought forward when negotiating traditional roles, filling spaces like courtrooms all too often neglected by empathetic touchlines seeking balance between justice served and compassion shown amidst life-altering decisions weighing heavy upon broader society, collectively implicated therein, alike yearning together towards enlightenment forged anew, an understanding able to carry swiftly ahead while meeting needs personified along paths unraveled within journeys oft taken haphazardly leading toward acceptance forged anew bathed gently against walls initially perceived rigid guarding. Ways past known towards horizons painted fresh, inviting change, already starting quietly bustling long since overdue shining through all boundaries waiting ready despite lingering fear tethered amid hopeful pendulums swaying steadily, now overwriting previous chapters unfolding toward brightening futures awaiting emboldened explorations, leading uncharted territories beckoning exploration ever onward. This moment served as an important reminder. A lesson wrapped within unexpected encounters inviting. Connection nurtured gently blossoming forth helping foster deeper understandings bridging hearts alongside expectations set high shimmering tangential illumination welcoming possibilities formed anew embracing those who dare face storms unfurling ahead. As the heavy doors of the courtroom creaked open, a small figure stepped inside. At it was Emily, a 7-year-old girl whose heart raced as she took in her surroundings. Her big brown eyes widened at the sight of the rows of serious adults, each one looking so much larger than her. The atmosphere felt thick with tension, and she could almost hear the whisper of her own heartbeat echoing in her ears. Emily was dressed in a bright yellow dress that fluttered around her as she walked. The color was cheerful, but it did little to brighten the weight she felt in her chest. Today was a day she had never imagined would come. She was there not just to witness but to share her feelings about something that had shaken her world, the loud arguments at home that had turned her life upside down. This was not just a day in court. It felt like the most important moment of her young life. Holding onto her mother's hand tightly, Emily felt a mix of emotions swirling inside her. There was fear, of course. The judge, seated high above them, looked intimidating in his black robe, and his gavel seemed like a weapon of authority ready to cut through the air. She couldn't help but think about how serious everyone looked. How could they understand what she felt? Would they listen to her? Or would they see her as just another child lost in an adult world? As she walked further into the room, Emily's mind raced with memories of the night that brought her here. She remembered being tucked into bed, feeling safe until those angry voices pierced the night, shaking her from slumber. The fear had bubbled up inside her like a fizzy drink ready to overflow, leaving no room for peace or comfort. Now she had to find a way to talk about those feelings. Feelings that seemed too big for someone so small. With each step toward the front of the courtroom, a wave of uncertainty washed over her. What if she started to cry? What if the judge scolded her for being scared? She had heard stories from other kids about how tough it could be in places like this, but deep down, there was also a spark of bravery flickering within. She wanted to show everyone that even though she was just a little girl, what she had to say mattered. As she settled into her seat beside her mother, Emily glanced around at the room full of faces. Lawyers flipping through papers, court officials checking their watches, and even a few security officers standing watch near the exit. The seriousness of their expressions made her feel even smaller. She wished for nothing more than to disappear behind her mother's comforting presence. In that moment of silence before everything began, Emily's thoughts raced. What if nobody understood? What if they thought she was silly for crying? Yet there was also an unwavering determination brewing inside her. She reminded herself that sharing her story could help others who found themselves in situations just as difficult. This wasn't just about her. It was about finding strength in vulnerability and letting others see how scary things could be for children. When it came time for her to speak, nerves bubbled up again like soda fizzing over the rim of a glass. The air felt electric around her as all eyes turned toward the small girl who was expected to share something so heavy. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself, but fear mingled with hope inside her. Emily's heart pounded harder as she faced the judge's piercing gaze. Would he understand? Would he realize how hard it was for a child to put feelings into words? She wanted him to see beyond just tears and instead recognize the struggle behind them. A little girl yearning for comfort while navigating adult problems far too complex for someone her age. She prepared to speak about those troubled nights filled with shouting and chaos that echoed through their home. Tears began to well up in Emily's eyes once more. It wasn't just sadness. It was a release. a chance for everything bottled inside to finally escape into the open air where others could witness it too. That vulnerable moment when fear threatened to spill over into tears yet again. Something unexpected sparked within her spirit. An urge to transform sadness into strength and let everyone know how important it was to be heard and understood amidst all formality surrounding them. Gathering courage from within, Emily took one last look around the courtroom filled with grown-ups who seemed both intimidating yet curious enough to listen closely. Maybe they would understand after all. With trembling lips but determined eyes, she prepared herself to share not only what happened but also how it made her feel. Hoping against all odds they would truly hear every word spoken from deep within. This was more than just sharing a story. This was about connecting with others on a deeper level and breaking through barriers built by age or experience. A chance for compassion blooming amidst cold walls that often shielded warmth away too long. In that moment, standing strong amid uncertainty, where strength met, vulnerability intertwined beautifully together. They both knew change awaited beckoning on this journey forward, illuminating paths where kindness took root, nurturing future generations. As Emily closed her eyes briefly, and then opened them wide again, the room held its breath, ready for every heartfelt word set free, finally beginning anew, establishing bridges built upon understanding, while lifting spirits high, softly soaring together toward brighter horizons, painted many shades of hope emerging. Ever more illuminating possibilities waiting eagerly beyond every threshold, stepping lightly beyond barriers once seemingly insurmountable. As Emily sat in the courtroom, her heart racing, she felt a wave of emotions rush over her. The judge, whose stern expression seemed unyielding, peered down at her from his elevated position. His eyes sharp and unblinking when she began to speak about her experiences, the gravity of the moment hung heavily in the air. Then, as tears started to trickle down her cheeks, the atmosphere shifted. "Enough!" boomed the judge unexpectedly, his voice echoing off the walls. Emily flinched at his words, startled by the suddenness of his reaction. The stern look on his face deepened as he leaned closer toward her. "We do not cry in my courtroom. This is a place for facts and seriousness." His voice carried authority, making it hard for any child to argue or resist. Emily's heart sank as she processed his words. In that moment, all her bravery felt deflated like a balloon losing its air. She hadn't meant to cry. It had just happened because everything inside her felt so big and overwhelming. Yet, here was this powerful figure scolding her for showing the very emotions she feared would define her in this moment of vulnerability. Around her, she sensed a shift in the room. The initial shock of the judge's command rippled through those present. Some adults exchanged concerned glances, unsure how to react. She could feel their eyes on her. Some were sympathetic. Others seemed confused about what had just transpired, still feeling small beneath the judge's scrutiny. Emily wondered if he understood that children sometimes needed to express themselves differently than adults did. The weight of his disapproval pressed down on Emily like a heavy blanket. She wiped at her eyes with the back of her hand but knew it was no use. More tears pooled and spilled over as she struggled to regain her composure. Her small body trembled slightly as fresh sobs threatened to break free again. The judge's expression softened just a fraction as he observed her tear-stained face. However, he quickly masked it with authority once more. "You must gather yourself," he continued in a tone that was still firm but tinged with an unspoken understanding that perhaps he didn't want to see a child in distress either. "This is not how we proceed during serious discussions." "But," Emily began timidly, her voice barely above a whisper amidst the silence wrapping around them like thick fog. "Please," he interjected before she could finish, raising a hand slightly as if asking for patience from everyone present in court. "You are brave for sharing your story today. I commend you for that," he said slowly, attempting to shift gears yet still maintaining control over the proceedings. "However, we must keep our emotions in check when discussing difficult matters." Despite his intention to guide Emily back toward calmness and focus, she felt wronged, like someone had taken away her right to feel what was naturally there within her heart. This place felt cold and devoid of warmth where laughter and joy had no space, a stark contrast against all that made up childhood memories filled with innocence long overshadowed now by unfortunate realities beyond any child's control. As tears continued streaming down Emily's cheeks unabated despite efforts made thus far. It Was clear those emotions wouldn't be easily quelled by mere words alone. She wanted desperately for him, and everyone else, to understand that crying wasn't a sign of weakness but an expression yearning release amid turmoil swirling around inside, quietly waiting too long, needing acknowledgement. With trembling lips struggling between shyness and strength, trying hard, fighting against rigidity imposed through formality surrounding them, a resolution emerged, quietly expressing herself while holding tightly onto heartfelt truths, simmering through every fiber, lining each word, trying hard not to slip away, once more lost around constraints somewhere between being seen yet unheard. Realizing they needed this moment together, the judge also recognized something meaningful swept through some members, watching curiously, curious, exploring possibilities, imagining futures paved ahead, carrying compassion born softly, needing nurturance, already clearly taking root beneath unwavering surfaces adorned. Previously rigid, encasing warmth, longing blossoming forth, finally breaking barriers built across years beneath opaque layers. There was something beautiful about this interplay between authority figures tasked with maintaining order, while children like Emily attempted grasping emotional understanding within structured realms, demanding rationality, always balancing carefully engaged pathways, leading steadily onward, embracing progress built upon shared experiences, connecting fragmented journeys across age, wielding profound connections, bridging gaps, steadily transforming vulnerabilities felt into calculated strengths, guiding hearts toward acceptance, going forward, nurturing bonds, developing deeply amongst previously estranged, forming solidarity, amid traditionally guarded spaces, welcoming change, unfolding tenderly, adjusting perceptions anew, uncovering light, illuminating pathways, forged forward, slowly unfurling, enveloped, gently revealing deeper shades, hidden behind strict destinies. Awaiting transformation, inevitably calling forth empathy, growing steadily brighter, paving way ahead toward new hopes, promising revitalization, nurturing collective experiences shared where growth prevailed, rising gently together, forging new beginnings rich with love irreplaceable, reminding everyone present, lessons learned attuned, harmoniously resonating, deeply untouched among hearts beating brightly, shared stories written softly, evolving evermore. As Emily prepared herself again to speak through remaining tears glistening amidst uncertainty, breathing courage deeply rooted within, all waiting upon edges, bracing, expectantly ready, listening closely, emerging heartfelt words lingering just beyond, held lightly, trembling gracefully, unveiling truths long buried, awaiting gentle embrace, stepping freely onward where possibilities sparkled bright, inviting connection, reaching out, wide open hearts joined, seeking understanding, blossoming beautifully anew. Emily took a deep breath, the air thick with mixed emotions swirling around her. The stern command from the judge echoed in her ears, and for a fleeting moment, doubt threatened to cloud her determination. But beneath the layers of fear and sadness, an ember of courage flickered brightly. She realized that this was her chance. Not just to speak, but to express the reality of what she felt within her small heart. Wiping her tears away with the back of her hand, Emily steadied herself, allowing an unexpected rush of bravery to cascade through her. "But, Your Honor," she began, her voice steady despite the tremor of emotion weaving through each syllable. The courtroom fell silent, all eyes now raised in curiosity at the small girl who dared to speak again. "It's okay to cry sometimes. That it means you're feeling things really deep inside." The judge's brows furrowed slightly, surprised by her words. For a moment, he seemed at a loss for how to respond. The room held its breath, caught in a delicate balance between authority and the candid honesty emanating from this young girl. Emily continued, her resolve growing stronger with each word. "I know you want me to be strong," she said softly, locking eyes with the judge. "But what happened at home was really scary. Seeing my mom and dad fight made me feel like I was in a storm with no safe place to go." Her voice wavered as she spoke about the chaos that had thrown her little life into disarray, but she pressed on, drawing strength from the understanding faces surrounding her. "My heart hurts when I think about it," Emily admitted, glancing down for a brief moment before looking back up at the judge and the audience. "And I cried because I didn't know how else to feel safe or brave." The room shifted in energy. Witnesses exchanged glances, and some adults shifted in their seats as they felt the profound weight of her words settle over them like a warm blanket. There was something deeply impactful about hearing the truth from someone so young. A voice that cut through the formalities of the courtroom and tapped into something more human. "I may be just a little girl," Emily continued, "but my feelings matter just like yours do." As she stood there, trembling yet resolute, she realized that she wasn't alone. Every person in that courtroom shared some form of pain, the kind she had felt herself, but they also shared moments of kindness and healing that could come from understanding. The judge's expression softened as he listened intently. He was beginning to see beyond just the rules of decorum. He saw a child who was bravely trying to navigate an adult world filled with complexity and confusion. The tension dissipated slightly as empathy began to fill the space where earlier there had only been authority. "Your words are powerful, Emily," he replied slowly, his demeanor shifting from sternness toward compassion. "You are correct. It is okay to show emotions." His acknowledgement opened the door for others in the courtroom to reflect on their own feelings regarding vulnerability, not just as adults but as individuals who once held similar pieces of innocence within their hearts. Emily took another deep breath and continued, emboldened by his response. "If I can tell my story without being afraid, if I can show how scary my life has been sometimes, then maybe I can help other kids who are feeling lost like me." Her little voice echoed throughout the room. It bore a quiet strength that demanded respect and understanding. The courtroom erupted into murmurs as her message resonated with those listening intently. There was a shared sense of realization that perhaps societal walls built around emotional expression needed revisiting, especially for children caught in situations beyond their control. Suddenly, Emily felt lighter. She released years of worry with each word spoken openly and honestly revealing truths hidden too long in silence. Her voice rang out strong now as she spoke directly to her peers seated nearby. "You can be brave too. We all have stories worth sharing, even if we're scared." Applause began to swell gently at first, from one or two sympathetic souls before branching outward into waves rippling across every corner. One by one, people rose to their feet. They clapped not just for Emily's bravery but for connection forged amid shared emotions, lifting spirits high, brightening even this somber space filled previously confined awash, only draped heavily under shadows struggling against stark realities. In those precious moments unfolding beautifully, the barriers between children's hearts and grown-ups' understanding began collapsing, revealing pathways laid out, inviting exploration, nurturing bonds, developing deeper compassion born anew. This was not simply a court case. It became something much larger, a testament celebrating resilience stitched carefully together among lives intertwined, navigating challenges, finding common ground, welcoming warmth, light, igniting hope, blooming unexpectedly amidst vulnerability, anchoring lives forward through empathy effortlessly. Wove intrinsically embraced, shining brightly, moving ahead toward futures unbound, lovingly transforming journeys explored together, knowing they faced life. Armed now with understanding, rising slowly, facing challenges, radiating kindness, caring, growing steadily along entwined paths, illuminated, tenderly leading onward evermore. Emily stood tall as she soaked everything in. The adoration surrounding her gently carried forth massive hope, lighting every corner, reminding everyone present how vital voices could rise harmoniously even amidst moments marked heavy, launching forward hand in hand. As Emily's words filled the courtroom, the atmosphere began to shift dramatically. Initially, when the judge had scolded her, there was a palpable tension in the air. The adults present exchanged worried glances. Many felt a stirring mix of concern and confusion. Some thought the judge's reprimand was necessary for maintaining order, while others murmured quietly, troubled by how harshly he had reacted to such a vulnerable child. There were gasps of surprise as Emily spoke up against the judge, her bravery challenging the courtroom norms. The tension shifted from disapproval to an unexpected sense of solidarity among those in attendance. Witnesses could feel their hearts tugging at Emily's raw honesty. The truth she bravely shared echoed against the polished wooden walls where authority typically reigned supreme. The lawyers, who had been participating in serious discussions and exchanging formalities just moments before, began to lean forward in their seats, captivated by the small girl standing before them. Faces that had once displayed sternness softened, eyebrows tilted upward in a gesture of empathy. Even the security officers, typically symbols of authority and protection, found themselves nodding subtly as they absorbed her heartfelt plea. A woman in the back of the courtroom wiped away tears as she listened, remembering a similar time in her own childhood when fear took charge during family conflicts. She felt connected to Emily's experience as kinship washed over her, realizing how important it was for children like Emily to be heard and understood. Others around her shared knowing looks. They too were reminded of long-buried emotions tied to their own childhoods as Emily continued, Her words acted as a balm to the tension that had previously wrapped around the room like thick fog. With each sentence, she chiseled away at the hard surface of seriousness that typically defined court proceedings. The audience began to lean into her story. They felt the weight of her pain and recognized their own experiences mirrored within her. Emotional honesty. People began to shift uncomfortably in their chairs, not wanting to dismiss what they were feeling as mere sympathy but rather acknowledging an awakening. Acknowledgement toward their own past struggles and vulnerabilities. This sentiment grew amongst those seated, creating a ripple effect that spread slowly through the courtroom. Then came the moment when Emily encouraged everyone else to share their stories. Her simple words ignited something powerful within them, a sense that it was okay to express feelings openly without fear of judgment. The barriers built around emotional expression began to erode right before their eyes. They saw how sharing vulnerability could lead not only to personal healing but also touch lives beyond one's own immediate experience, reminding them of what it meant to be human amidst a world often clouded by formality and silence. When applause finally erupted in waves across the courtroom after her courageous stand, it resonated deeply with everyone involved. Members of the audience joined together in acceptance and understanding that transcended age or authority. It became clear that this was more than an ordinary court case. It transformed into a celebration of empathy where all could participate, collectively recognizing resilience as worthy of admiration. Some people stood with tears still fresh on their cheeks while others clapped with resolute determination, a sign that they were ready for change. In recognizing commonalities, amidst each unique struggle shared aloud, their collective spirit filled every corner around them, brightening even this somber space once weighed down heavy previously only by shadows now intertwined. Emily stood tall, witnessing firsthand how her courage sparked so much emotion within others gathered there. An undeniable connection formed even among strangers, brought together briefly through profound experiences woven together with understanding blooming beautifully across generations. The initial awkwardness surrounding Emily's tears evolved swiftly into encouragement and support. What started as tension morphed into hope, illuminating pathways forged by compassion reaching warmly toward brighter futures. Those present left feeling lighter and connected, ready not just to face challenges head-on, but also to embrace vulnerability as vital parts woven throughout life's rich tapestry, shared simultaneously, touching many lives gently yet persistently, evolving conversations moving forward onward. Embracing authenticity, growing thoughtfully, intertwining deeply nurturing bonds. This moment truly represented a significant turning point for every individual present. Young or old alike rekindled perspectives, realizing not only did they feel so much stronger standing united together, but they also learned through Emily's brave voice that growth blossomed beautifully through moments marked by tenderness courageously expressed freely, inviting others into lives needing understanding, igniting kindness, lighting paths forever changed, stepping forward, warmly shared hearts loving. Truly connecting, meaningfully enriched lives, touching everyone, gently reminding all how important voices could rise harmoniously even amidst moments marked heavy, wielding shared purpose forward, hand in hand, lifting one another upward, soaring brightly onward, unafraid, carrying continued dreams alive. As Emily's powerful words hung in the air, a hush fell over the courtroom, each person caught in the moment, a blend of awe and reflection. Those who had been witnesses to her struggle could feel something intangible yet profound shifting within them. That it was as if the heavy atmosphere that had filled the room like a storm cloud was finally breaking apart, allowing rays of understanding and compassion to seep through, with her final words resonating like echoes against the polished wood of the judge's bench. Emily stood there vulnerable yet empowered. The eyes of the audience were locked onto her, filled with admiration and respect for the little girl who had just bared her heart. That it felt as if time had paused, allowing every listener to absorb the depth of her courage and raw honesty. Then it happened. One person in the back began to clap, a hesitant but genuine sound, like a single drop of rain that signals the end of a drought. It was followed by another clap, and then another until a ripple effect surged through the crowd. Applause erupted, swelling into waves that filled the courtroom with warmth and solidarity. The sound enveloped Emily like a comforting blanket. It washed over her fears and insecurities, transforming them into something uplifting. She felt an overwhelming sense of support from these strangers. People who had once seemed distant and intimidating now united in encouragement for her bravery. As applause continued to echo throughout the room, faces beamed with recognition of their shared humanity. Tears streamed down cheeks, some of joy, others from empathy, as adults remembered their own childhood experiences filled with fears and struggles. This collective acknowledgement stirred something deep within everyone present, and no longer were they simply spectators. They were participants in a moment that transcended formality and tradition. The judge, too, felt this shift. His stern demeanor softened as he watched this transformation unfold before him. He raised his hands slightly to quiet the crowd after a few moments, but not before allowing himself a brief smile, one that reflected appreciation for what Emily had inspired within those walls typically reserved for order and authority. "Thank you," he said earnestly after silence fell again. "Thank you for sharing your truth." His voice carried sincerity as he recognized not only Emily's courage but also how this moment would resonate beyond just today. It was about fostering understanding and compassion not only within courtrooms but across all walks of life. Emily stood at the center of it all, her heart swelling with pride as she absorbed every clap and cheer directed toward her. In that moment, she felt seen, not just as a little girl burdened by fear, but as someone whose voice mattered greatly amidst deeper conversations surrounding emotions often hidden away behind walls of stoicism or silence. Around her, others began to share their own stories, some softly whispering their truths among friends nearby while others shouted out brave admissions born from years held back tightly. There was an electric hum in the air. Each voice added to a growing chorus celebrating vulnerability over shame, recognizing how healing often emerges from simply being heard as people rose from their seats one by one to join. In applause, it became clear that this occasion would be remembered not just as a court proceeding but as an awakening. A defining moment where connections were forged amid honesty woven seamlessly into lives intersecting together beautifully. Emily glanced around at those surrounding her, their smiles shining brightly through joyous tears, and she realized how significant this day had become. She felt encouraged by their willingness to listen openly and embrace authenticity without fear or hesitation. Each clap resonated deeply within her soul, a melody signaling not only acceptance but also an invitation for everyone present to look inward, to examine their own fears bravely. Together they transformed what could have remained silent anguish into shared moments marked bright by resilience blooming gently forth, inviting new beginnings ready to unfold. In that brief span following her heartfelt address, the court morphed from a space filled with rigid expectations into one alive with emotion where laughter mingled effortlessly alongside tears, creating warmth often absent in such formal surroundings. This gathering was no longer dominated by authority alone. It was now defined through community united by empathy, standing tall against adversity. As applause slowly faded into heartfelt murmurs among attendees, Emily could feel herself glowing brightly, radiating hope. She understood fully now how vital these connections truly were. The importance derived from sharing stories, openly intertwined lives, beautifully nurtured compassion growing steadily along paths illuminated together, moving ever forward hand in hand. In every heart present lay seeds planted deeply ready for growth, reminding each individual that allowing emotions free rein cultivates genuine bonds capable of transforming even the coldest environments into welcoming spaces where kindness reigns supreme, inviting all voices forward brightly unafraid, forging steadfast pathways, brightening horizons, shining forth hopes renewed, courageously embraced, lovingly nurtured, endlessly onward, carrying dreams alive, gently unfolding hand in hand. In the wake of the powerful moments that unfolded in the courtroom, it became clear to everyone present that this incident was about more than just one little girl's courage. It served as a poignant reminder of the significance of understanding emotions, particularly in children. Emily's experience highlighted a critical truth. Children are often faced with complex feelings, and when those emotions surface, they deserve to be acknowledged rather than dismissed. Emily's initial tears reflected not just sadness but a blend of fear, confusion, and a desperate need to be understood. When the judge scolded her for crying, many in attendance felt an immediate sense of unease. Here was a young child trying to navigate an adult world, a world filled with hard realities and raw emotions, and yet instead of being met with compassion, she faced criticism for expressing herself. This moment raised essential questions about how often society expects children to suppress their emotional responses in serious situations. As Emily bravely came forward to share her story of family turmoil and chaos, She resonated with the hidden fears and long-buried grievances that many adults had tucked away since their own childhoods. The display of emotion from such a young girl illuminated a universal struggle. She reminded everyone in that room how vital it is for children to feel safe when articulating their feelings. It underscored the reality that removing barriers to emotional expression can lead to healing, not just for the individual child, but also for the entire community. The applause that erupted following Emily's heartfelt speech symbolized more than support for her bravery. It represented a collective acknowledgement of shared experiences and the importance of emotional honesty. Those present were invited on a journey, one where vulnerability didn't signal weakness but rather encouraged strength. They learned that witnessing a child's struggle could evoke empathy and understanding, leading toward broader conversations around mental health and emotional literacy. This incident also sparked important reflections about how authority figures, like judges, teachers, and parents, can better serve the needs of children navigating difficult circumstances. When environments prioritize emotional validation over strict adherence to decorum, they create spaces where openness flourishes. The stark contrast between the courtroom's initial tension and its eventual warmth showcased how atmosphere matters greatly in facilitating meaningful conversations. Emily's experience illustrated the fundamental lesson that emotions should be embraced rather than stifled. Each tear shed was a testament to her authenticity. Each word spoken was a courageous step towards breaking down societal expectations surrounding emotional expression. For adults who witnessed this moment unfold, it was not merely about seeing a child cry in court. It was a call to action to advocate for understanding rather than judgment in all facets of life. With every shared story during and after the applause came an avalanche of reflections on one's personal challenges. The realization that life isn't always perfect and often presents complexities far beyond one's control. It reminded every adult present of their responsibility to foster environments where children can articulate their struggles without fear of negative repercussions. This shift became even more pronounced as others began sharing their own heartfelt stories inspired by Emily's bravery. Stories that revealed empathy over silence alongside compassion flourishing amid adversity. Each testimony painted vivid pictures of resilience found even within hardships endured, gracefully resonating, deeply connecting lives. Moments became catalysts encouraging them all not only reflectively but inspirited while stepping forth, intentionally nurturing further discussions around equity surrounding emotional expression, bridging gaps previously thought insurmountable, uniting communities worldwide. As the dust settled after all hearts reopened, each individual touched uniquely by these unfolding emotions quietly bound together toward inner landscapes, explored authentically, lifting spirits high beyond shadows, once veiled, stopped learning together, collectively nurturing connections, welcoming fresh kindness, carving pathways, deeper than words, eliminating burdens once carried so extensively, transforming them into light ready, soaring forth untethered. In acknowledging childhood fears openly, genuine bonds turned established, surging forth, breeding compassionate standpoints, crafting common, strong, embracing hope anew. Understanding emotions translates inevitably into nurturing relationships, grounding securely, where acceptance traces effortlessly, smiles forging ahead, creating futures bound, promising unity warmed this unusually vibrant day, igniting flames brightly forever, illuminating what had been cast aside. The courtroom may return to its conventional structure, once again marked by rules imposed unfortunately. But inside each heart prevailed seeds planted, welcoming blossoms slowly turning bright, illuminating, gradually cultivating spaces brimming alive, echoing truths once spoken needed, where others united under growing love, embarking purposeful journeys, glowing brightly ahead, rejoicing freely, embarking together, infinitely intertwined, encouraging every voice. Boldly thriving, reverberating hearts, yearning, wholly seeking, always proudly shout onward, creating legacies, transcending silence, unshackling dreams, opening doors, welcoming air under gentle embraces, reminding everyone community thrives best, accepting unique voices, raising harmoniously, interlinking everything beautifully together forevermore. As the courtroom began to settle after the emotional outpouring, it became increasingly evident just how vital kindness and compassion are in settings that often feel cold and intimidating. Emily's brave stand not only shattered the barriers of silence that typically govern such places but also served as a powerful reminder of the impact small voices can have on the world around them. In a space where authority usually loomed large, this little girl had turned everything upside down with her vulnerability. The applause that filled the room was not just an acknowledgement of Emily's courage. It was a collective embrace of the importance of empathy in dealing with sensitive subjects, especially those impacting children. It illustrated how kindness could flourish even in the most serious environments, creating connections that transcend age and authority. Seeing a child express her fears allowed everyone present to reflect on their own lives and recognize shared experiences that often lie hidden beneath layers of formality. In moments like this, it is easy to forget how neglecting emotional expression can lead to long-lasting consequences for children. Emily's tears were not signs of weakness. Rather, they were an invitation for others to understand the complexities of childhood emotions. Her bravery encouraged adults to reconsider how they respond to children's feelings, prompting them to create safe spaces where openness is welcomed rather than stifled. As the echoes of applause faded, many adults in the room felt a renewed commitment to fostering kindness within their own lives and communities. They understood now that emotional validation is not merely beneficial, it is essential. The willingness to listen and engage with children's feelings can cultivate resilience in young hearts, paving pathways toward healing that extend far beyond individual moments. This incident serves as a profound example of how even the smallest voices can spark significant change within larger systems. Emily's courage ignited an awakening not just for herself, but for all those who witnessed her moment of truth. It encouraged attendees to recognize their own moral responsibilities, to nurture understanding and compassion whenever possible, especially in environments like courtrooms where decisions made can alter lives forever. Moreover, these reflections led many adults present to commit themselves to advocating for children's rights, ensuring that their voices are heard and valued. This moment wasn't merely about one child's experience. It became a catalyst for broader conversations about emotional literacy, mental health awareness, and nurturing supportive communities ready to embrace vulnerability without fear. The tears shed during Emily's speech became symbols of hope rather than sorrow. They represented unspoken stories yearning for release from countless other children facing similar struggles. The applause reminded everyone that such expressions are not only acceptable but necessary in forging connections built on empathy and understanding. Going forward, this incident would be remembered as a pivotal moment, a turning point where kindness transformed formality into compassion. It prompted each person present to leave with renewed purpose, to advocate for those who cannot speak up for themselves, and create environments where honesty flourishes and emotional expression is celebrated instead of suppressed. Reflecting upon this little girl's bravery, it was clear that kindness could indeed change lives, not just as a concept but as a practiced behavior woven into everyday interactions. Whether in courtrooms or classrooms or homes, fostering an atmosphere where empathy reigns allows individuals young and old alike to feel seen, heard, and understood. Emily's story serves as a reminder that every encounter has the potential for greatness. Even within structured environments typically governed by rules and regulations lies immense power when approached with love and compassion. By championing small voices, we pave pathways forward filled with hope, encouraging everyone involved to carry these lessons onward into their daily lives. As people left the courtroom after witnessing such an extraordinary display of humanity, they did so inspired not only by Emily but also by each other. The stories shared creating bonds strengthened through mutual understanding, illuminating paths toward more compassionate futures ahead. In embracing kindness as our guiding principle alongside acknowledging vulnerability openly, we nurture growth, collectively fostering communities blooming vibrantly filled with acceptance, continually reinforcing why every voice matters profoundly. Let us remember this day, a testament not simply etched into legal records but sustained forever through hearts united under shared commitment, demonstrating together how kindness sparks change, illuminating our world one small voice at a time.